What's up, whodat Nation? It's Chris Roslogu from the Straight Up Saints podcast presented by Boot Crew Media and Hornitos Tequila, the official tequila of Boot Crew Media. And I'm sure the Packers needed a bunch of shots of Hornitos Tequila after that game, especially giving up 38 points to the Saints on offense. But more importantly, I think the offense for the Packers are the ones that are going to need some shots from Hornitos Tequila because they just looked flat out awful and just downright deflating against New Orleans Saints defense that really sent a message in week one. And one of the big keys for the Saints and their ability to have such a great performance against the Packers was their cornerback play. And we all knew Marshawn Lattimore was going to be amped up for week one, going up against Devontae Adams, facing Aaron Rodgers, playing for a contract, which we just found out that he signed before the game, which what a hell of a way to start. That there's nothing more motivating probably than getting a big fat check right before the game and knowing that you are locked up financially speaking for the next 5 years of your career. That's just great. But how about Paulson Adebo, the third-round pick rookie out of Stanford who missed last season because he sat out, concerns over COVID-19, rightfully so. A lot of people have been harsh on Paulson Adebo this year. I know a lot of people have made, I'm going to say people made jabs at his vaccination status. I just realized that was a horribly timed pun, but you know what? I'll take credit for it, I guess. But a lot of people talked about that, and that kind of pushed aside to the player. And I don't really want to get mixed between the two, but Paulson Adebo, the player, at least on Sunday, showed a hell of a lot of potential. And he is someone in the preseason who the Ravens tested a lot, the Jaguars tested a lot, and I tweeted a lot, and a lot of you guys did, that he showed a great response. When he gets tested, he's able to pick himself up the mat and come back at the offense. And how about against Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, who probably circled him down in their film studies? Here's a rookie. We really want to get after him and see what he's all about. They tested him. And they probably shouldn't have tested him. He looked really good. I know he got penalized in the first half, but I thought that really was just a ridiculous penalty. I thought it was great coverage, and I thought it was the ref's way of kind of just easing the Packers back in to see if they could give them some life. They ended up getting a field goal on that drive, but I thought the coverage was fine. Like, that's one of those PI calls that I would live with. I absolutely would live with if you're Adebo. I thought he was fine. And then how about the second half interception that I said, you guys said, everyone pretty much in the whodat Nation said was the game-clinching play for the New Orleans Saints, because you have the Packers driving. They could potentially make it a 17-10 ball game. Instead, Aaron Rodgers in the red zone gets pressured, throws an inexcusable interception to Paulson Adebo, who not only intercepts it, returns it for about an additional 25-30 yards, gets it to the New Orleans 40, sets up a nice drive for them to continue beating down the Green Bay Packers. And it was that moment for me. I said in the first half he belongs in the NFL. That moment solidified anything or any doubts that we had about Paulson Adebo, that he certainly belongs, because the cornerback position is so much about being responsive, being reactionary. And how do you have, do you have that short-term memory? And if you have short-term memory as a corner, I think that is one of the best attributes to have, because I think we saw with a lot of guys who played for the Saints in the past, especially a guy like Eli Apple, when they're going good, everything's great. But when shit hits the fan and you lose your confidence, are you able to just bounce back up off the turf and say, I got this? And I always felt like Eli Apple couldn't. And I felt like there's other corners who came through the Saints system who couldn't do that. Stanley Jean-Baptiste, I would say he couldn't do that, but he really couldn't do anything. So I don't know what he can and can't do. I know that he couldn't play for the New Orleans Saints. I know that. Paulson Adebo threw 2 preseason games in a regular season game. And I know that's such a small sample size. That's like the little scoop, of ice cream they give you when you try something out at Baskin-Robbins. They give you like that little spoon. It's a small sample size, but he looked really freaking good in that week 1 game. And it brings up the question, and the question needs to be asked. If Paulson Adebo continues to play like this, and if he is actually a legitimate cornerback in this league, how good can the Saints defense be? Because when I made my projections about this Saints defense, and when we kind of said that, hey, they could be a top 10 unit, and they could actually be a defensive-minded team, we kind of went with the assumption that Lattimore would do his thing, and who the hell knows what's going to go on at cornerback 2. And now all of a sudden, Paulson Adebo is showing potential. Bradley Roby's coming into town for this week, and he could play on Sunday against the Carolina Panthers. And then Ken Crawley eventually, a lot of people reported it's not a season-ending injury. So at some point, he'll return. I don't know how long, but, hamstring injuries can linger. The Saints should give him all the time in the world. And when Ken Crawley comes back, all of a sudden we went from one outside corner, if everything holds, to having Lattimore, Roby, Adebo, and Ken Crawley. I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty sure having 4 outside corners is way better than just having 1. And it really just changes defense, because we always knew when the Saints had Lattimore, he could lock up anyone. But there was always the threat of the other guy. Well, if the Saints can kind of neutralize that part of the game, that really changes a lot. And we all said, there's no one who didn't say it. Every single Saints fan, podcaster, analyst, insider, whatever you might be. Everyone said when they lost to Norris Jenkins, how do you replace a guy like that? A guy who played so well the last year and a half for the New Orleans Saints. And frankly, if the cap didn't get decimated by COVID-19 and the loss of money for the NFL, he's probably still in the black and gold this year. But the Saints might have found an answer. And that answer might just be Paulson Adebo, who, had he played in 2020 for the Stanford Cardinal and played pretty well, wouldn't have been a third-round pick. A guy who maybe left, if he left a year early, may have been a second-round pick, maybe a first-round pick. You know, the talent was always there for Paulson Adebo. The ball skills were always there for Paulson Adebo. It was kind of refining the skills of a player who has missed a year of football, a player who is raw but super talented, a player who does the things that you can't teach, and the things that you can teach, you can figure those out later. You can find them out on the fly. So I'm not trying to sit here and tell you that Paulson Adebo is a superstar corner. It's one game. But man, after all the concerns about the cornerback position, all the concerns about Paulson Adebo and what he might bring to the table, if you're a New Orleans Saints fan, I don't care if you're watching this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, any day of the week, you are feeling much better about the secondary today than you are before week one of the season. And that makes a huge difference, not just for this defense, but for this team, because the Saints have a solid secondary. We already know that the front seven can hold their own. Looking at this team, you're starting to say this could be a complete football team that might be better than a lot of people anticipated all the way back in August when we were looking at this schedule and saying, man, this might not be a playoff team. It's so early. Overreactions will be made, including from me. But right now, you have to like what Paulson Adebo is doing. And you have to wonder what's in store for number 29 when he plays the Carolina Panthers this week in what should be a really, really fun NFC South